Hello, hello, hello. Welcome aboard to our stream today. So glad to have you aboard. We have so much exciting content over on deck for today's stream. I am super amped to talk about DC Comics' upcoming solicits over this month. There's so many interesting new stories and announcements that have just recently been revealed over from the publisher. Elsewhere, we had just a fantastic week over on the YouTube channel, uploading some of our latest videos. I think I had an absolute blast checking in over on Green Lantern War Journal from DC Comics. We had the chance to cover the fifth issue, really charting Jon Stewart's battle against the Radiant Dead and Revenant Queen. I really think Green Lantern War Journal as a comic book series has been going nice and slow. But the way that it's developed these multiversal threats over between John and the remaining lanterns, super interesting. Elsewhere over on the stream, or over on our YouTube videos, we had the chance to review the latest issue of Amazing Spider-Man. And I actually think the gang war is still off to a really solid start. I think one of the main things that has really helped the gang war feel interesting, even though it's a really long arc over in The Amazing Spider Man, is how frequently it's able to switch the focus over on the supporting cast members. The way that Madame Mask has just been lingering in the background of issue after issue until she finally reaches the end of the gang war with like a bolstered profile makes her just such an interesting supporting character. And I think the way that Zeb Wells has really invested so much time into her as each issue of the gang war has advanced has really created like a fascinating new entry point over for the core Spider-Man series. Also, I just love how personal the gang war is for both Tombstone and Kingpin over in the series. I feel like it makes, Amazing Spider Man as a comic book feel a lot more cohesive. Plus, I think that series just did a fantastic job switching the context over for the character of Janice Lincoln, pitting her over against Madame Mask. So, surprisingly enough, I think Amazing Spider Man is just handling the gang war incredibly well. We'll be talking more about some upcoming Marvel books over on tomorrow's stream. But we also had the chance this week to go ahead and dive into the latest issue of Marvel Comics' X-Men series over on X-Men issue 30. And that was actually just a fantastic chapter within the narrative. It seems like within each issue of X-Men, Jerry Duggan has like switched the focus over on the supporting cast or the characters, but I feel like X-Men is still pretty cohesive as a comic book series. So I'm actually really invested in where each like specific issue of the core X-Men book is really headed next. Issue 30 was just a phenomenal character study between Sync and Talon. These two X-Men are so important right now to Marvel's kind of core X-Men line because they're essentially leading the core team of Underground X-Men, which has really risen up in response to the X-Men's most recent Hellfire Gala. So once again, the fact that these two are getting the spotlight in a time that's really pivotal to each of their individual moves as X-Men characters, so fascinating. And plus, I think that series X-Men 30 just had a really phenomenal cliffhanger that I didn't see coming like at all, period. And I think it's just a great way to make Sync as a character feel even more interesting than he has been lately. However, that's not why you're here. You are here today to check out DC's Solicits. So I want to officially welcome you over to our stream today. Once again, here, I think we're going to have an absolute blast. We are really going to be focusing on all of the brand new DC comics that are set to be released over in April. One interesting thing that we kind of mentioned up top here is that there's actually some crossovers. There's some really important stories that were first announced as part of these DC April solicits. So we have quite a lot to get through here. One thing to mention up top is that I have been a little bit lapsed in my DC reading lately. I have still been invested in some of DC's comic books. The two that really come to mind here, which I've covered like extensively over on the channel lately, would be Batman and Robin and Birds of Prey. Over the coming weeks, I fully intend to catch up on a lot of these DC releases. I'm hoping that as we check through some of these, I'll get more excited and more invested to catch up over on these comics. Plus, another big one that we've already discussed that I'm already super hyped to check out over on today's stream would have to be Green Lantern War Journal. Sadly, I'm not caught up on the core Green Lantern series, but I just think each and every issue of that book has been nothing short of just absolutely phenomenal here. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into DC Comics solicits. Honestly, these solicit drops are like my absolute favorite time of the month here. I always end up making at least one or two of these covers, like my phone background, and it's just so exciting to have these books, just within a few days of them being announced. So it looks like DC's April solicits were first posted over on January 19th from David Brook over on Adventures in Poor Taste. Adventures in Poor Taste gets these solicit drops just so quickly, and I love the graphics that they use over for the headers also. The way it kind of combines like Batman, Green Lantern War Journal, and the new run of Harley Quinn together. Super cool. Let's go ahead and see what David Brook has to say about April solicits. Welcome to another edition of the DC Comics solicitations, this time for April 2024. Below you'll find cover and story details for all your favorite titles across the Trinity Batman in the larger universe. April 2024 is led by Batman still in prison, Nightwing hitting its 300th issue, and the House of Brainiac crossover story. The story will cross over from Action Comics to Superman and Power Girl. There's also a plethora of new collections that include Teen Titans Starfire, Justice League, Godzilla vs. Kong getting a hardcover, and a Batman Catwoman, the Gotham War getting a collected edition to name a few. I recently had a chance to check in over with that Batman Catwoman, the Gotham War storyline, and I think it really derailed the main Batman series in the middle of its like Zur and R like manifestation of what's going on with Batman. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a lot more context when we hit the trade, but I just recently read that and wanted to include some commentary on that book there. Okay, so it looks like we're already set to hit our first book. We should get into this because there are a lot of really interesting solicits. So this is the latest chapter over at Batman issue 146, written by Chip Zdarsky, featuring art from Jorge Jimenez. We have a backup from Chip Zdarsky and also a backup art from Michelle Bendini. One thing I can already point out here without even like diving into this solicit any farther is I really love that Punchline is included on the cover. I don't think Punchline has been quite as prominent in Chip Zdarsky's Batman as she was in James Tynion's run. I would love to see her like utilized more in the core series. Glad to see her like fleshed out here. Let's go ahead and check out the solicit. The explosive Dark Prisons arc continues as Batwoman, I almost said Batwoman, but no, this is Batman. We're not doing Outsiders. We're doing DC's like highest selling comic book here. The explosive Dark Prisons continues as Batman learns from an old mentor what Zur's plans are for Gotham City and the world. Can the Dark Knight escape from a prison designed by the ultimate version of himself? And what nefarious role does Joker play in all this? Okay, so I think it's pretty interesting that Chip Zdarsky is still pitting Bruce Wayne against his like alter ego over with the Zur-En-Arr personality. Once again, I think this entire run has really been devoted over to that concept. I'm a little bit worried about Chip Zdarsky maybe retracing his steps and trying to find a new context over for the Zur-En-Arr personality. But hey, at the end of the day, I am so happy that this Batman run has a villain that I'm actually interested and invested in. And also, I think Chip Zdarsky has featured some really great plotting over across his Batman run. Now, we did mention just a few moments ago that the the Batman Catwoman arc, the Gotham War did derail the series a little bit, but as soon as this like next storyline continued, I think the pacing picked right back up. It's also really fantastic to have Jorge Jimenez back on the interiors. Jorge Jimenez has been working with the main Batman series for a really long time in this capacity. As you can see, he always draws incredibly detailed characters, really strong facial expressions too. Michelle Bendini, also a really good artist. Will be interesting to see what she lends over to the backup on Batman 146. I've really liked the backups over in the series so far that have really featured and like fleshed out aspects for the Zur-En-Arr character. All right, well, I think Batman right now is in a really good place, actually. I know I was a little bit worried about what Chip Zdarsky would bring to the character of Batman, because I've Really didn't like his run on Daredevil that much, but I think it's fleshed out really, really well. Okay, this next book is very, very interesting, and it looks like DC is kind of keeping very tight-lipped about it. Fortunately, though, we have an article coming in over from Popverse teasing a little bit more about this brand new comic book. Let's go ahead and check this one out. This one coming in over from Graham McMillan. DC is teasing its big 2024 event, and it's a surprise 30 years in the making. We certainly don't know what DC's major event of 2024 Free Comic Book Day Special Edition actually is, but we're certainly curious. So, as you can see there from the solicits, DC is teasing something big over for excuse me, let's see if I can vocalize words today. DC Comics is really trying to unleash a brand new event and tease it over in the Free Comic Book Day issue coming in May. However, we don't know yet what that new comic book series is. Let's go ahead and check in with Pop versus Gray McMillan and do a little bit of speculation over on the new DC Comics event. DC has announced plans for mainstream comics' biggest open house of the year. Of course, we're talking about Free Comic Book Day. Of the DC Books plan, there's one where the lack of information only makes it more intriguing. Not even a title, creators, a cover, and barely a synopsis, making it seem intentionally eye-catching. Alongside Free Comic Book Day, DC releases previews of upcoming graphic novels Barkham Asylum and Barda, and a third release for the Mad magazine, which is described in part by DC by saying it's cheaper than the usual cheap because it's free. There's an issue currently with the placeholder name, DC's major event of 2024 FCBD Special Edition. If that's not enough to draw attention, the official description of the issue probably is: the prelude to the biggest DC comic book event of 2024 will drop on May 4th at all participating retailers. It begins. It's a story 30 years in the making, and in this special free comic book tale, an original story leading into a new series launching summer 2024, the final domino to fall, the final brick on the wall, and an epic scheme comes tumbling down, and the DC universe will never be the same. More details coming soon, no spoilers here. Unpicking this description is simultaneously easy and, well, not that easy. The mention of a final brick in the wall and the mention of it being related to the comic book event is almost certainly a sign that the story will be in some way related to the company's Trinity of Evil storyline, which puts Amanda Waller in the spotlight, a character whose nickname is, of course, The Wall. I have no idea why Popverse included that blurb over in the article, but that's fine. Still a good article. Still a great article speculating on just what this thing could be here. That said, a story 30 years in the making is a fascinating tease to drop. Back in 1994, the biggest DC events were the Reign of the Superman storyline, Hal Jordan's Fall from Grace in Emerald Twilight, and 0 Hour: A Crisis in Time, which saw the DC Universe rebooted from scratch for a second time in a decade. Could this new event be spinning out of one of those fan-favorite comics, or could it be something far less obvious? 94 was also a year that saw the launch of the acclaimed Starman series from James Robinson and Tony Harris, for example, as well as the debut of a forgotten Justice League member, Triumph. Could a more obscure comic hold the key? Whatever the answer, it's almost guaranteed that we're not going to find out anytime soon. Free Comic Book Day 2024 isn't until May 4th. Until then, keep your eyes on Popverse. All right, let's go ahead and explore and break down this article. Let's add some commentary and maybe see what DC has in mind over for that Free Comic Book Day event. So one thing I'm really thinking here is that DC just as a whole right now probably needs to stray away from Superman and Batman a little bit. I really think at one point the Green Lantern franchise was just so epic that it was able to spearhead events by itself. I would really love to see DC maybe tap into just any other character, whether it be like Batman supporting cast members, Batwoman, just anybody they could really use this event to just bolster their character. I think Night Terrors, even though it had a focus on Batman, did some really strong character work with Wesley Dodds as the Sandman as well as Deadman. I'd love to see those two characters spotlighted again in this event, because I know not many people were actually kind of checking in on the main Night Terror series monthly. Also, One other thing this article referenced was Hal Jordan's kind of fall from grace during Emerald Twilight. I definitely don't think at this point that we can have anything, resembling a fall from grace from Hal Jordan, because I don't think his character has been established enough over the past years at DC Comics. It almost feels like the way Grant Morrison was writing Hal Jordan is just a lot different than how Jeremy Adams is. So I think DC really needs to establish the Green Lantern franchise maybe further before they can really have like a super big impact event. I mean, maybe they could spin something out of Green Lantern War Journal, but the problem with that is I don't really know how many people are reading that book on a monthly basis. The last couple sentences in this article were so fascinating as they really talked about the debut of the really acclaimed Starman series from James Robinson and Tony Harris. That would be so cool if we got a relaunch of that book. I know James Robinson and Tony Harris. I believe they're still active over in the comic book industry. Please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would love to see maybe those two creators go back to Sandman. Maybe that would give me an excuse to go back and read that whole run. What else do we have here? As for example, as well as the debut of Forgot Justice League member Triumph. That is so interesting. Maybe for anybody else who's really looking to speculate, you can always go back and check out, some of these older comics and see if you can get any nuggets about what DC Comics has in store. Frankly, I feel like Free Comic Book Day is only a couple months away. I really hope DC unveils the lid on whatever this thing is really, really soon. I typically like DC's like really splashy, big and bombastic events here. So I'm hoping this one doesn't disappoint me. And we're just going to have to wait and see what DC has in store. Maybe the one last thing I can mention about this is when they talk about the final dominoes and an epic scheme coming tumbling down, I'm almost thinking of like the Source Wall in the Green Lantern franchise. I can't quite remember though how that storyline resolved and if that is still in Green Lantern continuity, but just thought I'd include that little nugget of information there. Okay, next up we have one of the other Free Comic Book Day stories. This is a preview of the Barda graphic novel. Frankly, I think it's really cool that DC is introducing characters like Big Barda to younger readers. And man, this preview art over on the cover alone is beautiful here. It looks like this is written and illustrated by let's see if I can get this name right. Gozi Ukazu. Darkseid is, and life on Apocalypse is tough. But then, it is hell after all. And no one knows this better than Barda, Granny Goodness's right-hand warrior. But when Granny decides Barda is becoming too soft, she assigns Barda a task that might be more than she can handle, to break the seemingly unbreakable Scott free. And as Barda questions why Scott has such hope and what he might have done to promote such hatred from Granny, she finds herself drawn to him in a way that she never expected. Join New York Times best-selling author-illustrator Gozi Ukazu as she takes readers on the unforgettable journey of self-discovery, deep friendships, and first loves. This free Comic Book Day special edition features an excerpt from the original Barda graphic novel. I have to say, out of all these like young readers, DC Comics storylines like the Starfire and the Beast Boy series, I think this one really holds a special place for me. Mainly because I think Big Barda is just way, way more interesting than your average DC character. Some of the relationships that she's able to open up with just weirdos like Granny Goodness as well as Scott Free makes her such an interesting character. Also love how much power she has just by herself as well over in the core series. I really hope DC continues to take on some of these weirder characters. I would love to see like a Deadman or even a Wesley Dodds like Young Readers series. I think that would be really, really cool. Okay, let's go ahead and check in on the next Free Comic Book Day offering. This looks like a fun one called, let's see, Barkham Asylum. Written by Yehudi Mercado. Wow, not only written, but featuring art and cover and writing from Yehudi Mercado. When the supervillains of Gotham get thrown into Arkham Asylum, their henchpens go to the maximum security pound known as Barkham Asylum. Fur flies when Jester, the Joker's dog, gets a tough-talking stray cat named Penny tossed into the lockup with him. But they'll have to work together to figure out what the evil Dr. Hugo Mang is up to. And the only way to stop this terrifying team-up is to win the talent show and get visitations with the Masters at Arkham on the Hill, because the Joker is sure to help what could go wrong with that plan. I am always interested in seeing like how DC is able to like recontextualize Batman and the Joker in the context of like a different setting with animal characters. But to me, this premise does feel a little bit forced. I'm just imagining like Joker having an animal, and the only thing that really comes to mind is Joker probably cares about it for the first day, but maybe not the second day or the third day. I'd be interested to see if this sticks around, but I'm not seeing any real interesting aspect to it, maybe aside from the art. But we'll just have to wait and see. And I'm really hoping maybe this will get some younger readers interested in DC Comics too. It's always important to get new readers in these books because I do think the average age of just the average superhero reader is going up as each year progresses here. Okay, this is one of the last free comic book day books coming in from DC. Kind of a silly gag featuring Superman like ripping off his suit, thinking he has his suit underneath here. This is the Mad Magazine 2024 Free Comic Book Day Special Edition, written by the usual gang of idiots, featuring a cover by an idiot with a crayon. All right, let's go ahead and check in on just a really important next comic book. This is the latest issue of Detective Comics, written over by Ram V, featuring art by the incredible Javier Fernandez. And we also have just amazing covers from excellent creators like Evan Cagle. I am woefully behind over on the main Detective Comics run, but I've loved just some of the themes and concepts that Ram V has illustrated and written across this series. I also really love the tone that the Gotham Nocturne arc had that kicked off this comic book title. Eventually, I'm going to go back and read this entire series in trade. I'm sure it'll read so good, kind of cohesively picking up on individual story to story. I also had the chance to check in on Twitter this morning and got to see Ramvi really stating that it seemed like this arc, this kind of upcoming arc over on Detective Comics, is going to be really, really important as well to the main book. And it's one of the series that he initially pitched over. It's one of the aspects of the series, rather, that he initially pitched over to DC. So I am really hoping for something interesting as Ram V's Detective Comics run starts to wind down. Be really interesting if Azrael got to join the main series, or maybe he's just featured on this cover here. Wow, this is actually one of the best Jim Lee covers I've seen in quite some time. The city glitters on his horizon, his city, his responsibility to defend and protect. But home has changed, corrupted by the power of the organs, hypnotic suggestions, mutated into something he does not recognize. This isn't the city Batman remembers, but the city doesn't remember Batman either. Gotham Nocturne Act 3 is upon us, and the countdown to the finale of Ram V's epic gothic opera has begun. You are not ready. Yeah, I'm really, really excited once again to see this run wind down. I think this has been just a pretty special introduction to Batman just based on the tone alone for this title. We've gotten amazing art from just excellent creators like Javier Fernandez. We featured just really strong and moody lighting and a really fascinating villain over with the Orghems. Plus, I think it's interesting how Ramvi just keeps changing like the setting, location, and the time for his main book too. I really think Detective Comics is special and just can't wait to see where it's headed next. Okay, let's talk about a DC comic book that I am vastly familiar with. This is the latest issue of Batman and Robin, featuring a suspiciously small cover. This is Batman and Robin issue 8, written by Joshua Williamson. It looks like this one still features art and cover from the wonderful Simone DeMeo. We have some variants from Ijikuri and Kale New, as well as a variant over from the excellent Nicholas Sismessaja. I love this variant cover. I feel like Sismessaja is able to render a Damien that is just so expressive across so many of these pages here. Let's check out the solicit on Batman and Robin 8. As Batman finds himself in the clutches of a new cult that worships Man-Bat, Robin continues his own investigation into his high school's connections to Shush. Can the father and son dynamic duo uncover Man-Bat and Shush's master plans before Gotham pays the price? Yeah, I think Joshua Williamson has paced the Batman and Robin series incredibly carefully. The way that these animal themed villains have introduced the character of Man Bat as kind of the head of this really fascinating cult, as well as the new, recontextualized version of Hush known as Shush, has created just this really interesting sense of tension. Batman and Robin right now are also trying to reestablish their relationship after some really horrifying events over in DC's core continuity. And they even think that this character of Shush could be Damien's principal stone. So I think this book has just featured such an interesting way to explore the relationship between these two characters and also just revitalize and make some of Batman's Rogues Gallery feature even more interesting scenarios and ideas than before. Also, one thing I'm a little bit worried about in terms of Batman and Robin and checking out the solicit is maybe how slow the issue is moving. In the latest issue, we touched on all these plot threads, and it looks like this issue is expanding on them instead of introducing like new story concepts. Um, right now, I really hope that DC is able to move this book forward and that Joshua Williamson is able to plot it really carefully to make sure that the comic book doesn't seem redundant. Also, I think one thing that I really want to see featured more prominently in the main Batman and Robin series are more elements from the Robin title that Joshua Williamson and Gleb Melnikov worked on. We've already got it in terms of this character of Flatline, who appears to be heading back over to the main Batman and Robin series. But as time develops, I hope we get even more concepts from the League of Lazarus tournament headed over to the main Batman series. I think it's been really phenomenal just to see Damien as a character kind of develop some of those relationships and reference like his drawing and some of the relationships that he had in that Robin book as well. Also, the artwork from Simone DeMeo over on this series has been lovely. It took me some time to really get acclimated to Simone DeMeo's interior work because he just introduces so much interesting shading over as an artist. But I've really grown to appreciate just how well he is at executing the tone from Joshua Williams' script as Batman and Robin as a comic book has continued. All right, let's go ahead and check on the next book over from DC. This one is pretty interesting. Over with Batman Offworld Issue 5, written by Jason Aaron, featuring artwork from Doug Mahnke as well as Jaime Mendoza. In a distant galaxy, the villainous Black Sun Mining Company has ruled with an iron fist, murdering or enslaving all that stand in their way, but they've never faced the brutal, unrelenting fists of justice as Batman is breaking up the monstrous monopoly. Have not yet dove into the world of Batman Offworld. I know there's a lot of fans over in terms of Jason Aaron who are really eager to check this one out. There's a ton of interesting like sci-fi science fiction concepts here. I think one of the things we stated in terms of Batman Offworld is that we were really looking for Jason Aaron to explore any other character in the DC universe aside from Batman. So in the future, really hoping that Jason Aaron takes on maybe a different assignment. But I also just appreciate the really epic tone in terms of Batman Offworld and just how it's featured like a bombastic way for Jason Aaron to make a really strong impact at DC. Also, we have some beautiful covers and really interesting art from Doug Mahnke and Jaime Mendoza here. Let's go ahead and head into our next issue. This one is Batman Dark Age. Batman Dark Age is written by Mark Russell, featuring art and cover from the excellent Mike Allred. This is yet another exploration of history in the DC universe, kind of spearheaded by Russell himself. Guilty as charged, when a young and aimless Bruce Wayne finds himself incarcerated, he looks for a way to shorten his sentence and return to his charmed lifestyle. Little does he know, signing up for a tour with the army in Vietnam will change him forever. Witness the birth of the Bat under the watchful eye of the one and only Sergeant Ra's al Ghul. Yeah, very cool how Batman is just contextualized more in a historical setting here as he's signing up for a tour in the army. One thing I'm really interested in terms of Batman Dark Age is if there's going to be any just really biting satire, maybe about history or Batman himself, written from Mark Russell. Also, just Mike Allred over as an artist is just incredible. A lot of these covers on Batman Dark Age 2 are just really gorgeous and incredibly stylized. It feels like a lot of the artists illustrating variant covers for this series are really trying to just introduce really stylized concepts to accommodate this ambitious series. Let's briefly check in on the latest issue of Catwoman. It looks like this run over with Teeny Howard and Carmine Di Giandomenico is still going here. Really have not checked in with Catwoman for quite a while, but I can say that Carmine Di Giandomenico is one of my favorite artists across DC Comics. I feel like his work is just so expressive no matter which context you're seeing it in. Nine Lives enters its sixth chapter. Selina has carried out almost every lethal heist on the face of the Earth, so now it's time to head to space. In a universe full of interplanetary heroes and villains, secrets get left behind in strange places. And one in particular has caught the Catwoman's eye. As she approaches a familiar yet abandoned station, she might want to watch her back, for she's not the only one walking among the stars. One thing I'm interested in terms of this Catwoman book is if the second Catwoman is still featured in terms of DC's continuity, but overall I just don't see any like really big story hook that would make me interested in just checking out the core Catwoman title. But I can endorse the Jan Domenico artwork. Okay, next up, it looks like we have the anthology series Batman the Brave and the Bold. This is, I would say that this comic book as a whole is really fascinating each and every month, just in how they switch creative teams. So, issue 12 is written by Carl Kerschel, Toran Gronbeck, Delilah Dawson, Herrick Hanna. We feature art from Carl Kerschel, Fernando Passarin, Serge Acuna, and Charlie Adlard, and the cover is illustrated over from the wonderful Simone DeMeo, who is also illustrating the interiors for Batman and Robin. It's really interesting that Simone DeMeo is able to illustrate so many pieces of art, even though it's so detailed and stylized here. I feel like this image of Batman just looking down across Gotham at all the individual villains just features so many screens and patches of light, as well as just individual bats here. Really beautiful, just how much Simone DeMeo is accommodating some of the really fascinating artwork within Batman Brave and Bold. Batman and Maps have unraveled the monstrous mystery that has been terrorizing Gotham. But will they be able to stop it in time? The school bell rings as Batman's adventures at Gotham Academy reaches its stunning conclusion. As Artemis continues her quest, Lois Lane encounters the mysterious figure behind the hunt, the online challenge that has entered the real world with deadly consequences. Wanted to take a step back here over on Batman and Robin 12 and just quickly mention that I love how the character of Maps has been utilized more in terms of DC's continuity. I think over in the Birds of Prey series, that Maps character has just featured a really interesting set of story scenarios. I also like the fact that Artemis is still working with Lois Lane too. I feel like that's a really interesting combination of characters. Last but definitely not least, don't miss the newest installment of Batman Black and White, drawn by one of comics' legendary black and white artists, The Walking Dead's Charlie Adlard. Very cool for fans who are really like invested in the Walking Dead property to get to see how Charlie Adlard would contextualize the character of Bruce Wayne as Batman here. All right, and next up we have a fascinating look at the upcoming series for Nightwing. Lately, I've seen some really ambitious and epic covers over for the Nightwing property, and this one is a special one. It's issue 300 of the core series, also 113 for the main title as well. So Nightwing 113, 300, written over from Tom Taylor, featuring art by a various group of collaborators here. We have a backup from Michael Conrad, Howard Porter, and just a beautiful cover there that we previewed from Bruno Redondo. We have variants from Dan Mora, Jamal Campbell, and Serge Acuna. So I think right now, in terms of Nightwing, his presence has really been bolstered thanks to the end of the Dark Crisis as well as the beginnings of Beast World. So I am fascinated to see where DC is going to feature, Dick Grayson in the milestone issue of his main title here. Since the 1940s, you've seen him go from acrobat to orphan, from Dick Grayson to Robin, from Robin to Nightwing. You've seen him work alongside the universe's most powerful heroes against existence's most sinister villains. You've seen Dick Grayson do so many things, but now, in his 300th issue, you will see him, well, you'll just have to pick up the issue and find out. Join us for this legacy milestone. As you can see here, I think these covers also illustrate all these different contexts and eras over for Nightwing as a character. Man, this Jamal Campbell cover is just so gorgeous. Really have been enjoying his artwork as time has gone on here. And just the way that Dan Moore is able to make like modern covers look so classic is just beautiful and wondrous here. Okay, so it looks like we have yet another special issue of Nightwing this month. I guess a legacy issue, a milestone issue wasn't enough for DC Comics. This one is the Nightwing 2024 annual. This one actually doesn't feature Tom Taylor at all. It's written, illustrated, and the cover apparently is all from Travis Moore. The secret origins of Bea Bennett. During Nightwing's recent pirate adventure, we learn that Bea Bennett, Dick/Rick's ex-girlfriend, is a pirate queen whose father, the quartermaster, left her an entire pirate society. But what about her life before she became a pirate, before she met Rick Grayson? Just what, and more importantly, who led her to where she is today? A backstory like no other, with tales of betrayal, love, and independence. I don't know. I feel like there is so much, Nightwing Titans content, this much, that having like an ancillary story about a supporting cast member in Nightwing's life, I think this just might be too much for me as a concept. I really hope I'm wrong here. This cover is amazing. I'm really hoping the craft is really phenomenal in this issue, but man, I think DC really needs to more carefully flesh out some of their planning in the midst of their content, because I just think there's an insane amount of Nightwing product coming in April from DC. Okay, we also have the latest issue of Harley Quinn. This one features really beautiful covers here. Haven't really had the chance to check out this run. So issue 39 of Harley Quinn, written by Teenie Howard, featuring art by Natasha Bustos, cover by Sweeney Boo, variants from Jenny Frison, Logan Fairbairn, Adam Warren, and Mindy Lee. Hey Puddin', meet the new and improved Harley Quinn, supervillain for hire. That's right, you jabronis, I'm back and I'm busting heads. Okay, just between you and me though, this is all part of a secret plan I got going to study some of Gotham's worst, up close and personally. Think of it as an let's see if I can get this word right, anthropologic study, and don't get your brain all flustered. Plus, zip, pow, zoinko. Feast your eyes on my interstellar delights as your girl takes a trip into outer space to hang out with star babes and some serious outer space stinkers, brought to you by my great grouse mother, Erica Henderson. Wow, that was really complicated to read, but super cool to explore. Just the really fascinating context that this creative team have put Harley Quinn in. And oh boy, I think these covers are just so amazing here, especially this one from Logan Fairbairn. Also, this Jenny Frison, like retro-esque variant, so cool. I'm loving all the covers that are featured here too. Okay, what is the deal with this next Harley Quinn issue? It looks like this is a Harley Quinn annual, written and drawn by Erica Henderson. Also, variant cover, a main cover from Henderson as well. It's interesting how DC is approaching some of the annuals in April by featuring like writer, artist, creators really taking control of some of these annuals here. Toot toot, ladies and germs, don't you just hate it when you're best but left and right with no reward? Whether you're devoted to a life of heroism, villainy, or regular personism, everyone needs a break, which is where the Harley Quinn 2024 annual comes in. 40 pages of luxurious, Luxury cruise-based comedy guaranteed to leave you feeling rested, relaxed, and ready to freaking solve a maritime murder mystery. When Zatanna gets framed for a mystery on a cruise ship, all Shamluck Harley Quinn is on the case. This is a really beautiful cover from Erica Henderson featured here. I love all the humor that Henderson is able to devote over to her work. I'm not sure how much Harley Quinn she's done in the past, but I actually think this is just a great way to see a talented writer and artist take control of a really interesting character at DC. In terms of DC Comics, Harley Quinn is a really tough character for me to invest in. Same thing for Deadpool at Marvel. I think a lot of times writers go too silly with these characters and don't appreciate the actual story within the narrative. So I'm really happy that Erica Henderson is at least going to introduce some more personality within her figures alone. I think this cover and the way that Zatanna has the upper hand against Harley Quinn is very, very silly. Really hoping that we'll see some of those similar story scenarios over in the main, Harley Quinn annual here. Why don't we go from a book about some DC Batman supporting characters to another book really featuring some of these characters as well here. I am such a big fan of Birds of Prey. I think this is a beautiful cover here featuring our interesting team of cast members with Big Barda. We have Dinah, Batgirl in the background, Vixen, and Cassandra Cain. Let's go ahead and check on the 8th issue of Birds of Prey. Mary McCabe, aka Vixen, has joined the Birds of Prey to help them get to the bottom of the mysterious villain hunting them through time. But first, Mari has a fashionably dangerous problem of her own that needs solving. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, never looks so good. Lots of things to talk about in terms of Birds of Prey 8s. First of all, this one actually features art from Javier Pina. Javier Pina, I've actually loved from some previous work over on Swamp Thing, while I'm really missing some of the artwork over from the wonderful Leonardo Romero. I think Pina is going to be a really great substitute. Really interested to see what Pina brings to the interiors for Birds of Prey. I love this cover over from Romero. I think Romero's facial expressions from these characters are just so joyous and always just fills me with so much warmth. I hope that he continues to illustrate these covers even if he isn't able to draw each and every issue within the main series. Also, super cool to see Vixen joining the cast of this team. I'm interested to see what dynamic she's going to implement. Also, I'm kind of wondering too, is the character of Maps out and maybe Vixen is in? Maybe they're just slightly changing the roster of the Birds of Prey characters. Nonetheless, though, this really seems interesting. I like the idea of this character who's kind of hunting them through time. It's almost kind of similar to what's going on in the core JSA book, but I really think after Birds of Prey wraps up the first storyline where Dinah is able to rescue Sin from the Amazons, I think the book should go in a different direction. So I'm happy to see that it'll maybe take on a more high octane premise as we head into the next really big arc over in the series. Also, I'm hoping that there'll be some plot threads from the main Birds of Prey title still introduced in this comic book to make it feel really cohesive, even as it begins to switch arcs here. I have no doubt that some of those character dynamics, especially with all the interesting things Kelly Thompson is doing with Zealot, will continue to be fleshed out. Just really excited to see where Birds of Prey is headed next. We've gotten some pretty good Jim Lee covers this month. I do think sometimes Jim Lee as an artist can be pretty inconsistent, but I think this cover featuring Big Barda has just a great expression from him and quite a lot of detail in the background too with that spaceship. Okay, let's go ahead and check in on Outsiders. Outsiders has featured some really wonderful and imaginative covers. Sadly, I've only really had the chance to check in on the first issue. I know at least the second one is out by now. Still have really high hopes between this series. I'm really loving the big sense of ambition it has, and just the really interesting cast of characters between Luke, Batwoman, and the drummer here. Really focusing in on maybe a hole in reality or something towards the upper part of this cover. I'm interested to see how the logo design is going to affect the overall composition of the cover too. Outsiders 6, written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, featuring featuring art by Robert Carey and a cover by Roger Cruz. The Place Between Pages. Welcome, outsiders. Welcome to a pleasant small town sitting just outside the periphery of memory. Please do make yourselves at home. There's much to do and all the time in the world to do it. Take a stroll past long forgotten faces, visit places that no longer are, and leave the worries of your endless existence behind. At long last, you have nothing to fear. Welcome to the place between pages. Welcome outside. Yeah, I'm hyped. I'm really hyped. I'm glad this series is so ambitious between like each and every issue. You know, we're only 6 issues in, but it looks like we're already hopping realities and heading deep into science fiction realities. Who knows how long The Outsiders is going to last as a comic book series? So I think it's really up to Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, Robert Carey, and Roger Cruz to go as hard as they possibly can and to introduce as many science fiction concepts as they can to really keep readers going and to cement a cult status with the Outsiders concept. I'm really curious if anybody in chat is reading Outsiders, would love to hear some of your opinions and thoughts over on the main book. I love the first issue. Can't wait to see where this book goes next. I hope it sticks around for a while at DC. I'm really happy to see DC's take on Poison Ivy return. Well, I haven't really read this series outside of the first maybe 2 issues. I was always struck by the tone, and frankly, I'm just really happy that DC has an outlet for the creators of G. Willow Wilson and Marcio Takara because they are so incredibly talented. Let's check in on the 21st issue of Poison Ivy. Who's black, gray, and green all over? Batman. Uncover how Poison Ivy and the Dark Knight detective himself came to blows in the final chapter of G. Willow Wilson and Marcio Takara's unforgettable Origin of Species storyline. So sounds like they're winding down a big story over in Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy has been going a long time. 21 issues of this series. I'm wondering if this is the longest, at least recent runs over on this character. I'm wondering how long G. Willow Wilson and Marcio Takara have left for this main series. But just some of these covers, some of the concepts and ideas here are just amazing. I'm going to glide through this and see if I can find anything really interesting here aside from this really wonderful main cover by Sanford Green on Red Hood the Hill. Red Hood is a character or somebody who is just so filled with angst that I find it really hard to attach to as a character. I wonder what Sean Martinborough and Tony Atkins have in store for Jason Todd. Let's check out the solicit on Red Hood the Hill 3. All hell comes to the hill, literally. Jason Todd has gone up against his fair share of monsters and the paranormal creatures in his time, but he's never gone up anything quite like the demonic creatures that have been unleashed in the streets of his hometown. Literal monsters roam the city, metaphorical monsters pull the strings in the shadows, and they all have Red Hood in their sights. Yeah, Red Hood fighting some monsters, I don't know if that's enough for me to really latch onto this premise. I feel like I've read something by Sean Martinborough before and have enjoyed it. Maybe this one could be a lot more interesting than I anticipate, but I'm definitely skipping over this one in April, but that's just me personally. All right, we have the latest issue. It looks like this is Batman Brave and the Bold. No, excuse me. Batman Superman World's Finest, issue 26, written by Mark Waid and featuring art and cover by the wonderful Dan Mora. Plus, it looks like this one, judging from the cover alone here, is set to reintroduce Batmite and Mr. Mxyzptlk. These are 2 characters that I absolutely love across DC. I love it whenever DC gets weird and introduces these off-the-beaten-path characters. Let's see just what Mr. Mxyzptlk and Batmite are up to in the pages of Batman Superman World's Finest. Beware the power of Doommite. Following the imp-shattering events of the Batman Superman World's Finest 2024 Annual and 25, it's up to Mr. Mxyzptlk and Batmite to convince Batman and Superman they're for real this time. If this dynamic duo of odd couples can't work together, then our entire dimension is in jeopardy. So it sounds like there's quite a bit of continuity that you need to read in order to catch this issue of Batman Superman. They're asking you to read the Batman Superman annual and issue 25, apparently. But I feel like maybe you'll get some interesting payoff here, right? Having the introduction of the dynamic duo of Batman and Superman working alongside their smaller counterparts should lead to some really fun story ideas. Plus, I think Mark Waid and Dan Moore, a really strong creative team, loving what they're doing on the main Shazam book and some previous issues within this core title. Another pretty solid Jim Lee cover featuring Aquaman. Okay, good stuff from DC. Um, I have a bit of an aversion over to Tom King comics, so we're gonna just kind of glide through this Penguin issue, the Penguin 9, written by Tom King, featuring art from Rafael De La Torre. Really strong group of artists on this book. I love Rafael De La Torre's art and Carmine Di Giandomenico's covers, as well as Francesco Mattina. So if you're a really diehard Batman fan, you're really invested in the Penguin, you're at least going to get some beautiful visuals over on the Penguin issue 9. Hey, it looks like we are heading into the meat of some of our brand new content. Let's go ahead and explore Superman and the House of Brainiac. So it looks like this storyline is set to kick off in issue 1064 of Action Comics. This one is also going to be really fun because Joshua Williamson is actually writing the Action Comics scripts. And this one features art from Rafa Sandoval. I feel like it's probably going to feel a lot like a Philip Kennedy Johnson issue of the series. Wish he was still writing Action Comics, just to be totally straightforward here. House of Brainiac Part 1. Brainiac's Lobo army invades Metropolis in an action-packed oversized issue. The super family and all the heroes of Metropolis join the fight. But can they be enough to hold off Brainiac's lethal and crazed soldiers? Can Superman and Lex learn what Brainiac is searching for? He's not bottling Metropolis, so what is he collecting instead? So I believe we knew towards the beginning of Dawn in DC that DC had something in mind in terms of Brainiac. Also, I think that Joshua Williamson has devoted so much time in the core Superman book to setting up these ideas of these countless Superman villains, as well as Brainiac lingering within the background. We've also returned to this concept a couple times following Dawn of DC, so really getting the payoff here, I think, feels nothing less than cathartic from the publisher. Let's dive into the Solicit again and see what kind of plot details I can pick up on. So we have a Lobo army spearheaded by Brainiac invading Metropolis. Let's see, we have the heroes of Metropolis joining up. You know, this actually feels cohesive from the main Action Comics title. DC has invested more time in fleshing out the Superman supporting cast, so now that they're heading into a big event, they can cash in some of those chips and use some of those characters. Can Superman and Lex learn what Brainiac is searching for? He's not bottling Metropolis, so what is he collecting instead? As of right now, still not sure, but very interested to find out. Let's see where this House of Brainiac story is headed next with the upcoming issue. Okay, so this is the next chapter of the House of Brainiac. This one is written over, and this is Superman 13, written by Joshua Williamson, also featuring art from Rafa Sandoval. Once again here, this probably is going to feel really close to the beginning of the Dawn of DC Action Comics run. House of Brainiac Part 2. Superman and Lobo team up. Together, the Man of Steel and the Main Man race across the universe on a hunt for the Lobo army and Brainiac. Can they get along long enough to get to them before Brainiac enacts the next stage of his dangerous plans to create a new House of Brainiac? Very interesting core ideas here. I can already see some of the dialogue happening between the team up with Superman and Lobo during House of Brainiac. It feels like Joshua Williamson is so great at capturing the subtext between these individual character dynamics and given just such strong work with villains like Parasite. I feel like we're going to be in for a really phenomenal time as Superman and Lobo deepen their relationship in the midst of this super epic story. Thankfully, though, the fun over on House of Brainiac is still going in April at DC Comics with our next comic book series. This is House of Brainiac, Superman House of Brainiac Special Issue 1, written by Joshua Williamson and the tremendous and satirical Mark Russell. This one featuring art by Edwin Gallman and the excellent Steve Pugh, and a cover from Jamal Campbell. House of Brainiac Part 2.5. An essential issue in the Action Comics Superman crossover as Brainiac's secret history with Lobo and Zarnia is revealed. How did Brainiac create a bottled city of Zarnia? Who steps up to protect Metropolis after Brainiac's army leaves it in ruins? Will Lois Lane confront Perry White about his secrets as he runs for mayor of Metropolis? And how is Amanda Waller involved in all this? All these questions are answered in this crucial issue that connects to DC's Superman-sized events. Meanwhile, Bibbo steps up with the heroes gone and in a city in need of some champions. Our favorite bartender organizes the community to save their beloved home. Lots to say here for this House of Brainiac Special Issue 1. Really interesting to hear that Brainiac is working on a bottled city of Zarnia. Also, just the scandal of Perry White's secrets as he begins to run this mayoral campaign. That'll create lovely character interaction with Lois and Perry. Yeah, I'm also asking the same question the solicit is, how is Amanda Waller connected in this? It's cool to see also that Lex and Mercy are featured on this cover, right? We've spent so much time with them and Superman as part of Supercorps here. I'd love to see maybe these characters team up with Superman during this time where he's going to be in a lot of need, fighting all these different Brainiac-influenced characters and Zarnians, frankly, as well. Hey, look at this. It looks like some of the tie-ins over for that storyline, the House of Brainiac, are still featured here. Let's check out this Yannick Paquette cover for Power Girl, featuring the character of Crush and Power Girl Paige herself. This one written over from Leah Williams, featuring art from Eduardo Pensica and Julio Ferreira. And as mentioned earlier, we have a cover from the excellent Yannick Paquette. Really think it's funny how Crush is wearing this like boob window shirt almost to mock what Paige Power Girl is experiencing here. After an unexpected attack by Brainiac and his army of Lobos, everyone has power in Metropolis has been kidnapped and imprisoned. But fear not, our hero has avoided capture and is a lone super in a city of helpless villains. Will she be up for the challenge, or is a strange visitor about to turn her world upside down? Get ready for Crush to crash this pity party. Afro SF, good to have you on stream. This looks interesting. House of Brainiac looks fun. Reminds me of the Krypton TV show that had Brainiac, Lobo, and Seg-El, Superman's grandfathers, as guest stars. I've never seen that. Was that the Krypton show? I know that was like a short-lived, TV show idea over from Warner Bros. Okay, but lots of interesting stuff still aboard in House of Brainiac here. Let's go ahead and check out the latest issue of, let's see, is this Suicide Squad? Suicide Squad Dream Team. This is the upcoming series introducing characters like not Nicole Maines. Nicole Maines is the writer of the series, but the character of Dreamer as well as Deadeye are joining this brand new cast of Suicide Squad characters, along with some returning favorites like Bizarro and Harley Quinn. Super interested in where Suicide Squad Dream Team is headed next. Let's go ahead and check out this solicit. Dreamer has made her break from the rest of the squad, and Amanda Waller is pissed. Who will side with the dream-walking precog, and who will kiss the ring of the DC Universe's premier control freak? The answers will surprise you. Except, I think we all pretty much know Bizarro will do something opposite as the Dream Team shatters. Once again, there is so much potential within Suicide Squad Dream Team. really hoping that Nicole Maines is able to capture like a sense of tone that has been different from some of the previous runs on the characters, and also just introduce that sense of warmth that this book should have by introducing Dreamer as such a prominent character. I love that DC has been putting such an emphasis on Dreamer, with her having, or excuse me, they having such like a big emphasis over on some of the previous storylines like Lazarus Planet. Yeah, very excited for this upcoming Suicide Squad run from DC. Next up, we have Super Sons Chapter 3. This one written by Peter Tomasi, featuring art and cover by the excellent and expressive David LaFuente. As Sin Sin and Lord Zod beat the ever-loving snot out of each other on the streets of the planet Zella, a mysterious specter from the past lurks around the periphery. The Sinister Sons now literally find themselves trapped in the belly of a space whale with no means of escape. To their horror, they discover they are not alone in the muck and goop. Enter Spaceman Joe. The Sinister Sons, such an interesting idea from DC Comics. Really curious to see how it's going to develop and if it's going to really stick around in terms of the long term. I feel like they were introduced within the pages of the main Green Lantern series and ended up spinning into their own narrative. I think it's really interesting that they have ties to some villains like Sinestro. But once again, I'm just interested if DC is going to stick to these ideas, these characters, or if they're just going to abandon them really shortly after and just change focus within the next couple months. Yeah, that is just an amazing cover. Okay, I've heard some good things about this Kneel Before Zod series. This one written by Joe Casey, featuring art by Dan McDade and a cover by Jason Sean Alexander. Let's go ahead and see what Zod is up to in the latest issue of his main title. The aftermath of war. The brutal invasion of New Kandor has lost its supreme ruler, everything he holds dear. But there will be a reckoning, and General Zod will not rest until he has enacted his bloody revenge. Let the universe tremble as Casey and McDade deliver the newest chapter of DC's darkest cosmic odyssey. I think there is a really visceral and intense nature in terms of the violence within the covers of the Jason Sean Alexander, illustrated works over on Kneel Before Zod. Joe Casey has always been an interesting creator, always been just an incredibly ambitious artist or writer within the comic book industry. I'm also really struck at this cover introducing the Sinister Sons character too. Yeah, this one features like a more, facially precise rendition of the Zod character as well. So really interesting stuff coming to DC Comics and Kneel Before Zod. Really hope there's going to be some more inclusion with the Sinister Sons characters to implement them more strongly within DC's core continuity. I haven't checked out an issue of Wonder Woman in quite a long time. Let's go ahead and see how Tom King and Daniel Sampere are developing these new concepts for Diana in Wonder Woman issue 8. Wonder Woman vs. the Sovereign. After being captured by a team of villains, Diana finds herself at the mercy of the scariest of them all. Unbeknownst to our hero, the Sovereign has been pulling her strings since the very beginning of our tale. And now it's time for her to see the world his way as she falls under the influence of the lasso of lies. Plus, Trinity visits the past and unexpectedly changes the future. I'm not going to lie, there's some concepts in the solicit that really intrigue me. I also really like this cover as well. The Lasso of Lies is a great idea within the core DC context of characters, as well as within Wonder Woman's own set of skills and gadgets here. Also, I think the Sovereign is a pretty interesting character, if not being a bit cheesy over at DC Comics. However, in terms of this series, I am really worried about the tone that Tom King has, and I do need to check back and see how this title is developing. As of right now, it's really hard for me to give my seal of approval over on this main series because it does seem like some of the content is just a little bit darker than I would have liked to see applied to a main Wonder Woman comic book here. Sinister's, let's see, Y slash Arc 9 says Sinister Sons maybe going to bring back the Super Sons. That would be really cool. Would love to see these Super Sons recontextualized with the Sinister Sons too. All right, so that was our coverage over on DC's main Wonder Woman series. I will check this one out very soon. I hope I have a new, set of commentary to add very shortly here. Let's talk about the Flash issue 8. This one is written over from Simon Spurrier, but features artwork from Ramon Perez instead of Mike Deodato Jr. The Stillness's prayers have been answered, and with the help of someone very familiar to Wally West, the next stage of their plan is enacted. Meanwhile, where is Wally, and what has the Resident done with him? Okay, I'm going to take just a quick break here, and then we're going to be right back with some more Flash coverage. All right, thank you so much for sticking aboard here. We're going to go ahead and talk about the latest issue of DC Comics' upcoming Flash series on sale this Tuesday. This one features writing from Cy Spurrier, also writing the Flash issue 8, but this one has artwork from Mike Deodato Jr., I would argue the core artist within the main Flash title. This one is coming in from Adventures in Poor Taste. The mind-bending take on the fastest man alive continues. As Wally West's powers continue to evolve beyond his understanding, another confrontation with the stillness makes the group wonder if they are here to protect Earth from the Flash
or from him. While Wally seeks out the resident for answers, Jai has a secret he needs to tell his dad. And Jai's quest to find Wally brings him into the heart of the horrors affecting Central City. DC's core Flash series right now is featuring so many plot threads, so many different characters. We've seen Wally fight back against the stillness, against the uncoiled, and Wally also has to manage his just vast, supporting cast members and family within the book. He not only has he Wally West not only has one children, not two children. He's got three with the addition of his newest child, known as Wade here. Plus his wife recently lost speed powers, is kind of suffering through that. There's so many just intriguing elements and ways to get reintroduced within the context of the Flash. Let's see how the Flash reintroduces itself within the fifth issue. I love this opening page on the storyline, really introducing the character of Jai to the concept of the Flash series. Jai features so much narration within the context of the issue and really exploring how he manifests his speed powers on the first couple opening pages here is fascinating. Once again, he has different speed powers than Wally West, and seeing the ways he's able to manifest them on the page is just intriguing here. I love the introduction of the silhouette featured prominently on the Flash issue 5, which was also seated within the debut issue within the narrative. The Flash also uses the character of Jai to re-explore and reintroduce the storyline with Wally West, as he's really been trying to figure out what's going on with the Speed Force and why so many of his powers are haywire across this new Flash title. Also, they're trying to follow up on the cliffhanger of where Max Mercury left off in a previous issue of The Flash as well. Yeah, the character of Gorilla Grodd has really broken up and introduced so many harrowing plot points within the Flash series, which is how this mysterious brain is introduced in the context of this particular issue. And we have just a mysterious character teasing Jai about some of his powers within the story as well. It looks like the actual color of these silhouettes are finally revealed in this fourth panel. I want to read a little bit of what this mysterious character is saying to Jai and the way he's explaining some of his powers. It's because of this. See, kid, what you do, it's not teleporting, you're entangling with other conduits, then collapsing the quantum waveform. It's clever. How do you know who I am? Leave me alone. Supervillain alert. And we see this mysterious character saying, chill, kid. When I look at this individual page, I almost wonder if the character is going to be Metron or some other character introduced within, the new gods within the DC Comics universe here. Really fun stuff introduced within the pages of The Flash. This book right now, to me, has felt so embedded within the visual identity of Mike Deodato Jr. It's going to be so weird to see a different artist with Ramon Perez render the interiors in the upcoming 8th issue, but I'm actually a big fan of Ramon Perez's work, and I'm really intrigued with what he's going to deliver alongside Cy Spurrier. Lastly, the final thing I wanted to say about this book, and one of the biggest compliments I can give it that I haven't given it so far, is just that this title almost makes me feel like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And that whenever I'm introduced to Wally's kids, I get really immersed in them as characters, especially within the context of a school setting. I feel like you could easily do a book with Irie and Jai in the DC Comics universe, maybe still written by Cy Spurrier, and it would probably be really fantastic. But picking up on these plot threads in the middle of an ongoing series has made this Flash run feel like sublime. I'm such a big fan of this title. I think it's one of DC's best books. It has so many really intriguing individual plot threads, and I am so excited to check out issue 9 to see what Ramon Perez has in store. Y/Arc9 says Wonder Woman has an underrated rogues gallery. That could be right. I really like the character. Oh my gosh, his name is escaping me. Max Lord. Big fan of him. In a previous Flash issue, we also got to see the dynamic between Jesse Quick and Liberty Bell, as well as the character of Irie. That was such a touching, emotional aspect of the Flash book. Really hoping that they appear in some future issues as well. Hey, it looks like the fun with the Flash isn't even over this month. This is the Flash 2024 Annual 1, written by Simon Spurrier, featuring art by A.L. Kaplan, as well as a cover by regular series artist Mike Deodato Jr. With Wally West missing in action, Central City needs help dealing with the bizarre new threats that have arisen. Thankfully, Wallace West, Avery Ho, and Circuit Breaker are here to help. But can they count on Barry Allen, who is having a crisis of his own? Yeah, I think the focus on this Flash book with all the different speedsters, not only extending an emphasis to, Wally and his kids, but also Barry and Max Mercury has really made this just one of my favorite Flash runs, period. Also, the way that the Circuit Breaker is going to be reintroduced in this annual too is nothing short of just incredibly exciting. For me, I feel like this Flash book is finally pushing the limits of science fiction and just showing like what's capable when you take on every single plot thread, every single aspect of a character, and really distill it down with so many different relationships and just superhero scenarios. I love this book. So excited that we're getting not one but two issues of Cy Spurrier's Flash in April, featuring even more characters like Avery Ho, Wallace West, and Circuit Breaker. Plus, it looks like we even have an issue of the tremendous Speed Force. Haven't really had time to check back on the book since the first issue, but from everything I've seen so far, this series has been really, really fascinating. This is Speed Force issue 6, written by Jarrett Williams, featuring art from Danielle Di Nicuelo, cover by Taryn Clark. The young speedster has found the source of the missing scientists, but is it too late to turn back the tide of the brainwashed teens? Yeah, really interesting cast between Avery Ho and Wallace West in this core book. Once again, I'm glad DC has a home for their supporting Flash cast family members, and I hope that even following this Speed Force series, there's still going to be a strong outlet for those groups of characters. Hi, Sean Franklin. Thank you so much for coming to the stream. Good to have you aboard. And in fact, I want to show you this just tremendous cover over from Chris Samney featuring the Titans. Boy, I feel like I rarely get to see some of Chris Samney's work in the modern comics industry. Nothing short of a delight to see him, published, whether it be on a cover or interior from DC Comics. Titans 10 still written from Tom Taylor, featuring art from Lucas Meyer. It looks like this might feature some fallout from Beast World. Let's see what's in store for Titans 10. The Titans are committed to helping humanity. Whether humanity believes in them or not, the team is fighting on several fronts. But they refuse to back down, they refuse to buckle under overwhelming pressure. But are the Titans being manipulated? Are they on the wrong side of the conflict that could consume the world? Wow, so sounds like the Titans are really, really busy even following the events of Beast World. I hope that the tone of the series can still feature just a really, really strong sense of characterization, even as we begin to change the artist from Nicholas Scott to Lucas Meyer. Can't say I'm too familiar with Lucas Meyer as a creator, but I'm hoping that DC's editorial chose the right person for the job. I am so happy to see DC Comics' main Green Arrow series still going. I know this book needed fan support to continue. Once again, I am also just woefully, woefully behind on this main Green Lantern series, or excuse me, Green Arrow series. Sean Franklin, do you like DC Comics' New 52? I think the New 52 didn't really create the best set of stories. I feel like the New 52 interrupted some just classic and amazing modern runs of comics, like Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run, as well as Grant Morrison's Batman run. So no, I feel like right now DC is in a much, much better place. I feel like if you're gonna check out DC and you want to get into the comics, start at Dawn of DC. Don't start at the New 52. Too many of those books meandered and never really went anywhere. Have you seen Titans? I think the Titans show is just absolutely horrific. My apologies to anybody who worked on that project, but right now DC's Titans book is so incredibly good, and that show is just so bad. I mean, I think part of the issue with that show is it just features characters too young and too angsty. And I feel like right now, in terms of like DC's comic books with the tone, they're more measured, they're more careful in the ways that they deliver, some of those angst or dark feelings. And it leads me to reading comic books that have a lot more, subtext, that have a much better tone and just feature some more stronger character dynamics. I felt like, if you're really interested in the Titan show and you want to see how good comic books are, check out the latest Titan series, which was first written over by Tom Taylor, introducing art from Nicholas Scott. I feel like that book is just so, so phenomenal with each and every issue. Let's see here. Have you played Batman Arkham game? Yeah, the Batman Arkham games are actually good. I think the Batman, especially the first two, Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, those games actually have a really, really good tone, and that's actually a pretty good adaptation of the Batman franchise. I always like talking about like these weird tangents. If anybody else wants to ask questions, feel free to go and chat. All right, Green Arrow 11, Joshua Williamson, Sean Isaacsy. Since Green Arrow issue 1, Merlin has manipulated Oliver Queen and their Arrow family, but after Green Arrow makes a deal with Waller, the final battle between the two archers is here, and whoever loses this shootout will be stranded forever. AfroSF says New 52 ended the Great Booster Gold Series too. So many casualties of the New 52, man. I didn't read that. I've heard good things about that. Um, Man, it's just sad how many plans the New 52 just absolutely derailed. I remember just people had such fond memories of the DC universe before that time. But man, I feel like DC Comics is in a really, really good place. One thing that could really derail all the momentum that DC has built is if they just relaunch their entire line with another New 52. That would do so much damage right now to the DC universe. In fact, it might even be so bad that it would lead me to stop reading DC Comics because it would just derail the entire line. But thankfully, I think with Joshua Williamson just writing so many of the books right now at DC Comics, they're in a really, really good place. It's interesting with my relationship with Williamson too, because I definitely didn't like his comics at first, and they've grown on me more and more and more as time has gone on. This is such a wonderful cover with Green Arrow and Connor Hawk here too. Connor Hawk very recently been introduced back into DC Comics continuity, so it feels really special, like each and every single place where he shows up. Okay, so is this the newest issue of Green Lantern? Yes, it looks like it is. This is Green Lantern 10, written by Jeremy Adams. It looks like this one features a really fantastic art team. We not only have Zermanico returning to the core series, but also the excellent Kevin Maguire. With Hal's ring newly recharged, he leaves Earth for Oa to uncover the mystery surrounding the central power batteries, while Carol makes a choice that will change her destiny forever. Kevin Maguire joins Green Lantern architect Jeremy Adams to tell the tale of Guy Gardner, the United Planets, Lobo, and Wrestling. It's Guy's bogus Lobo adventure part 1 of 3. Jeremy Adams is really, really good at writing humor scenarios. And it's interesting to have a Green Lantern run that's a little bit more focused on humor as opposed to like those science fiction elements. I wonder if this is also going to be like a sequel of sorts to Jeremy Adams' fantastic wrestling issue that he introduced within his main Flash series. I haven't really caught up on this book, but I'm also a little bit intrigued to see how the relationship between Sinestro and Hal Jordan is kind of developing and where it leaves off here. I'm wondering if there's like something that happened in a recent issue that kind of caused more of a resolution between their conflict. Also, I really like the relationship that Hal has with Carol and her new fiance. Very interested to see how that one plays out over in the main book. Really strong covers too over on Green Lantern 10. Also, watching Jeremy Adams take on Guy with Kevin Maguire. Should be nothing short of really, really fun. We already mentioned Adam's really strong at writing humor scenarios. I don't think this individual issue is going to be any exception. So, complementing the kind of silly and humor based Green Lantern series is the incredibly somber and epic Green Lantern War Journal. This is the eighth issue of the series alongside Birds of Prey and Batman and Robin. This has got to be one of my favorite ongoings at DC Comics. This one, written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, featuring art and cover by Montos. Questioning his loyalty to the Green Lantern Corps and stranded on a terrifying new world, John finds a lost crew desperately in need of a hero, even as he senses an ominous growing within the dark star of the Fen. Meanwhile, on Earth, John's newly resurrected sister, Ellie, learns that she shares John's powers and she'll need to protect their family from the cosmic abomination that was Varen. Yeah, have to hand it to Green Lantern War Journal in the way it follows up on so many of these cliffhangers. The way that Ellie was reintroduced back into the narrative in the last issue of Green Lantern War Journal was so sad, was so horrifying, especially as John's relationship with his mother continues to develop within this core book. Also, the Dark Star carvings within the Amazon rainforest were so interesting. I am just nothing less than intrigued to see what this Dark Star of the Fen is. Lastly, we have something referenced about a cosmic abomination being Varen. Varen was like a rogue lantern working with the United Corps of Planets over in terms of the Green Lantern book and has been in opposition of John so frequently. It's going to be interesting to see how he's maybe mutated and developed with the infection of the Radiant Dead spreading across the planet. This issue doesn't make any reference towards the Radiant Dead or Revenant Queen as well. So I'm interested where in just exactly where some of those storylines are headed there. Also have just some really strong covers from Montos and other creators on Green Lantern War Journal 8. Wow, this cover from Dan Mora featuring so many of the animal-based covers for Shazam is so interesting. Let's check in on Shazam issue 10. This one actually isn't written by Mark Waid. It's written by Josie Campbell, featuring artwork from Emanuela Lupacchino, really, really strong creator who I've enjoyed a lot of work from, with just wonderful, wonderful Dan Mora cover here. Moving Day. After destroying the family home during an epic battle with Black Adam, Billy has hired the gods who grant his powers to rebuild it. What surprises await the Shazam family as they enter the new abode? Find out as a new run brought to you by fan favorites Josie Campbell and Emanuela Lupacchino begins. Oh my gosh, this is really fascinating. It sounds like we are getting the confirmation that Mark Waid is no longer writing the core Shazam series from DC. This is pretty shocking to me as a reader. To me, it felt like Mark Waid was maybe like in the middle of his run, but it did feel like some of the fan appreciation was falling as each issue progressed. I am so intrigued with what Josie Campbell is going to bring to this series. I'm really interested if Mary Bromfeld is going to take on maybe a larger position here and where this one is headed. Really fantastic to see characters like Taki Tani and the dinosaur still referenced. We also have some of the other Shazam supporting cast members, like Mary herself, featured on this page here too. Yeah, I am so intrigued that Shazam is switching hands from Mark Waid and Dan Mora to Josie Campbell and Emanuela Lupacchino, but all of these are good creators, and I don't see the end result of any of these books being anything short of just immense quality. Okay, Blue Beetle 8 still going. Have to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of this character, but I think I've heard some good things about this one. Blue Beetle 8, written by Josh Trujillo, featuring art and cover by Adrian Gutierrez. With Jaime back in Palmera City, he's faced with picking up the pieces from his battle with the Blood Scarab. Okay, cool stuff in the core Blue Beetle title. Okay, this is Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. This is just so far out of my my specialty, my area of expertise, even despite the fact that I'm just such a massive nerd and so invested in the DC universe. I know a lot of people really love this book. This one written by Brian Buccellato, featuring art by Christian Duce and Tom Derenick. We have a cover here by Drew Johnson. Next up, what do we have? Is this a Suicide Squad game tie-in? Suicide Squad Kill Arkham Asylum issue 4, written by John Layman, featuring art by Jesus Hervas and a cover by Dan Panosian. Let me tell you, I am watching this Suicide Squad game incredibly closely. It's been really interesting to see how this one has just really moved the positions of the gaming industry. It seemed like when maybe Suicide Squad was first announced, people were okay with it. Then when they learned about, some of the online gameplay within the video game, there was a lot of backlash. Now they're trying to ramp down and remove some of those elements, as live service games has really not been the place for the gaming industry to move in. But it feels like we've only learned about that as Suicide Squad has been really, really deep into the development. Once again, here, there will be some more coverage of the Suicide Squad game over on our channel, but I am just really interested in how this one is going to shake out here. Really can't speak to the quality of this tie-in series either, but once again, I'm watching this one with an eagle eye. All right, let's see if this is a Superman tie-in. This is Superman 78, The Metal Curtain, issue 6, written by Robert Venditti, featuring art by Gavin Guidry. I hope there is a segment of readers who are really interested in checking this one out, but it is not me. Okay, let's see what issue this is. This is DC's Spring Breakout, written by Megan Fitzmartin, Cameron Chittock, Joey Esposito, Morgan Hampton, Patrick Young, Tom Grajewski, Mike Barr, and more, featuring art by Kenya Danino, Vasco Georgiev, Paul Pelletier, Nick Piskunin, and more, with a cover by the excellent John Timms. Really fantastic to see some interesting names pop up in terms of this DC Spring Breakout book with people like Joey Esposito, Morgan Hampton. Let's read the solicit and see what some of these creators have in store for the book. Spring has sprung. Flowers are blooming. Bees are buzzing. Harley is breaking King Shark out of Belle Reve prison. All is right in the DCU as both heroes and villains face all sort of different spring breaks. Breaking out of coffin? Lex Luthor has you covered. Spring break training? Send in Superman. Breaking out of your shell? Batman and Mr. Freeze explore that possibility through a connection in their shared past. Breaking down a worthy adversary? Katana and her Sword of Souls might be able to tackle that. And it wouldn't be a spring break without a Teen Titans beach trip. All these and more in DC's Spring Breakout, 8 breakout stories to put a spring in your step. All right, once again, just cool how DC is implementing some new talent here in order to really keep their publishing line alive. We have the latest issue of Justice Society of America, teasing the character of Starman, and a beautiful cover coming in from Mikel Yanin. This is issue 11 of the core series. As Huntress pushes to recruit the Harley Quinn's son, the Legionnaire enacts his plans against the JSA. What does this mean for the future of the world's first super team? By the way, this cover is illustrated by Tony Harris, as I'm learning about from the signature here. Man, the amount of just JSA characters featured on this cover with some new designs are just so cool and breathtaking. I love the composition for this one as well. I feel like if you went to a comic book store and you looked at so many covers, this one would definitely stand out in terms of the amazing personality. I wish JSA was published just a little bit more frequently from DC, as in truth, I really enjoyed each and every issue. I think Johns has done some really strong work with the Huntress as the protagonist. Also, I don't know who the Legionnaire is. I think it'd be really cool to see him in action against the JSA too. Next up, we have Batman Dylan Dog issue 2. We're going to skip by this. This, once again, is just so far out of my area of expertise. Kami Garcia and Gabriel Piccolo are following up on their Teen Titans series with a book centered around Starfire. I know we talked about DC's young adult line. I think Starfire is a character who, once again, is probably a little bit more interesting as opposed to some of the other DC Comics characters. Leonard McFarlane Why is Joshua Williamson writing so many DC comics? Don't they have any other good writers? You know what? I think there is truth to what you're saying. I think there is a little bit of truth to what you're saying. I realized the other day that Joshua Williamson was writing not only a Batman book, but a Superman book too. That's insane. That's not even the only comics he's publishing each and every month. There's also like Green Arrow, and I'm sure there's even some other books that I'm not really talking about. But I feel like there's a lot of other creators working on other books that I'm excited about, right? Like, for instance, Kelly Thompson working on the Birds of Prey book. That's one of my favorite DC ongoings. We also have Chip Zdarsky working on like the main Batman title. I'll tell you, one thing that really hurts was removing Philip Kennedy Johnson from Action Comics because I feel like he does bring a different sensibility and writes comics in a different way that Joshua Williamson does. And I wish maybe that Williamson was writing maybe a few less books and we had Johnson writing a couple more from DC. So I do think there is something to what you're saying, but I am really loving almost every single Joshua Williamson book that's in publication. Just really interesting talking point. And if anybody has anything else to add in chat, I'd love to hear some of your responses too. Prez, we talked about Prez on our last stream. Mark Russell, Ben Caldwell, so great to have them back. So cool to see that they're re-releasing this series with a brand new story. If you've never checked Prez out, it's a really cool book featuring like a satire on the political landscape, and it'll really show you just how incredibly smart Mark Russell is as a creator. Batman and Robin and Howard. This looks like a funny story from Jeffrey Brown. Primer 2, written by Jennifer Murrow and Thomas Krajewski. What else do we have? The Batman and Scooby-Doo mysteries. And wow, look at that. Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Issue 127. All right, what else is on board for DC Solicits here? We have The Batman First Night, Issue 2, written by Dan Jurgens, featuring art and cover from Mike Perkins. I love Mike Perkins as a creator. Wow, really beautiful just sense of texture across all the individual lines on this page too. And just the way that Batman's cape is showing you all the different characters in a collage setting makes the Batman First Night look like a really endearing book. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about John Constantine Hellblazer Dead in America, issue 4. This one written by Simon Spurrier, featuring art and cover from Aaron Campbell. John Constantine, faith healer, disguised as a Catholic priest in a small town near the Texas-Mexico border. John searches for the connection between how a dust-ridden country turned out a massive harvest and dreams missing sand. But this good-natured, all-American town has an ugly secret, one that brings John, Nat, and Noah face-to-face with monsters of a very human kind. AfroSF, what is the best DC book right now that has a good jumping on point, Arakko Braddock? I don't currently buy any, but I'm tempted to buy the General Zod series. Got 2 answers for you. My 2 favorite books at DC, Green Lantern War Journal and Birds of Prey. Green Lantern War Journal is probably, I would say, like the best book at DC currently. The artwork from Montos is so beautiful. I've never been as invested in Jon Stewart as a character as I have been since the opening of that series. I think there's a lot of other really, really good DC books right now, like Titans, like the Joshua Williamson books with Batman and Robin. But for me, I would say Green Lantern War Journal and Birds of Prey are the 2 that are really, really sticking with me. I've also heard just tremendous things about this John Constantine Hellblazer Dead in America series. There is just so much John Constantine work I'm not really familiar with. I'm going to have to go back and see where Cy Spurrier started with this series, but I really find it interesting how it has a connection to the Sandman series. And I think most of Cy Spurrier's projects at DC and Marvel have been nothing short of interesting, so I don't see why this one would be as well. All right, so we have a facsimile publication for the Brave and the Bold 54. Such a silly cover here. Once again, another facsimile issue on Showcase 22 for Green Lantern. And we have a collection here for Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. We've mentioned this about 3 times on the stream, but boy, do I think Batman, Catwoman, the Gotham War just derailed so much momentum with what Chip Zdarsky was building in his core Batman series. Thankfully, it seems like he's already back to delivering the intrigue between Batman and Zur-En-Arrh, as the most recent solicit clearly pointed out. Yeah, I haven't really checked out any of what. Actually, no, that's a lie. I did check out one issue of Kelly Lansing and Max Dunbar's Batman Beyond, and I really wasn't impressed. Those are just some of my initial thoughts on that title. Nightwing Volume 5, written by Tom Taylor and C.S. Picot, art by Travis Moore, Bruno Redondo, Julio Ferreira, and more, cover by Bruno Redondo and Adriana Lucas. I think Nightwing has been pretty good over in the main series, but just nothing tremendous. For me, as soon as like the main Titans book was introduced, it feels like Nightwing having a solo series is almost redundant at DC. I have nothing but good things to say about the first collection of the new Green Lantern run from Jeremy Adams and Zermanico for the most part. This one is just absolutely phenomenal, really brings Hal Jordan and Sinestro back into continuity. This run feels so much different from what Jeff Johns was accomplishing on his main book, but I'm just loving all the subtext from Jeremy Adams. I feel like there's some really great work from Zermanico too. Hawkgirl. Man, I wish I kept up with Hawkgirl by Jadzia Axelrod and Amon K. Nahulpan. Everything I read from this series was just phenomenal. I love the villain of Vulpecula, and I think Hawkgirl is actually a pretty interesting protagonist as well. So this is a collection of the Titans book that I keep telling you to check out. This one written by Tom Taylor, featuring art by Nicholas Scott. It kind of serves as the prelude to the Beast World storyline, and it's just such a great way to catch up with all the individual Titans characters who you might not have seen for a little while here. Also, really strong material with the first volume of Shazam from Mark Waid and Dan Mora. I think it'd be really interesting to check out their 9-issue run before the new creative team of Josie Campbell heads aboard the new series. Red Hood Outlaws Volume 2. I have no idea what this is. We're just going to move on. Vixen, New York City, original stories by Webtoon. I have not read this, but boy, does it feature a wonderful Vasco Georgiev cover. Man, I love so many of the characters, concepts, ideas, visuals in Danger Street, but Tom King's writing just has not connected with me with his last like 5 to 6 projects, and leaves me just way too apprehensive about checking this one out. Oh boy, we have a reprinting of Identity Crisis, one of the most controversial DC Comics events ever. Interesting stuff. Also, yet another collection here for Batman's White Knight series from Sean Murphy. You know, this one I actually want to read, Batman the Knight. This one written by Chip Zdarsky and Carmine Di Giandomenico. For this one, I'm just curious what sort of plot elements that Chip Zdarsky and Giandomenico were able to like implement into their main Batman series. I think this one also looks pretty fascinating. Glad to see a collection for Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. I hope just as many readers check this one out as possible. We have Dark Crisis Young Justice, JLA Year 1. And yeah, I think that is just about going to do it over on our stream today. Perfect. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for coming aboard and checking out our stream. Tomorrow, we're actually going to have more of the usual content. We're going to be diving into some new stories regarding the X-Men characters in particular. Let's see what else we're going to head into. We're going to talk a lot about Spider-Man tomorrow and explore some of the brand new Ultimate Spider Man pages that Marvel recently released. We are also going to check in on some beautiful pages for the resurrection of Magneto. That's going to be such a fun story to preview tomorrow. And plus, we're also going to be diving into a tremendous interview over with Kieran Gillen on Adventures in Poor Taste. My name is Arakko Braddock. I want to thank you so much for checking out our stream today, and we'll be back tomorrow to talk about all the latest Marvel projects heading over real soon. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon here.